Hi everyone, back with what I had hoped to be a bit of a more thorough look at the Thokk Weaponmaster gloves. Unfortunately, at the beginning of this month I caught COVID at work, and that means that I unfortunately didn't get to use the gloves as much as I had frankly planned to. Now, luckily I caught the fact I had COVID before going to the fencing event, Freifechter, that I actually wanted to go to, but yeah, it means that I didn't get to use the glove throughout the event for sparring and the tournament. Still, in the meantime, enough things came up that I think are worth just, talking about, that I just wanted to do a quicker video at least, just giving some work in progress thoughts on the matter. But do keep in mind just that is basically what it is. It is a work in progress, a rather early impression, not very much first impression. I'm a bit beyond that. I have used them. I mean, just look at the video we posted last time where we used them for the first time for longsword fencing. But yeah, not as much as I would have hoped. And that also means that at the moment, what I can mostly give is early impressions on using them and things that I noticed while handling the gloves. And that can mean that maybe my impression could come off as a bit more negative than I would really say it is. That is just, you have to keep in mind, these gloves didn't really have a chance to prove themselves to me yet. Now, if you take, for example, the Infinity gloves, if you look at my first review there, my first impression was not negative, but I wasn't quite sure if they would fit what I do, which is mainly like one-handed fencing. Whereas when you then go to my revisit that I did for them, there I was overall much more positive, and that is because in the meantime they've broken in a bit more, and I just had a chance to really learn that I could trust them, that they are good gloves for what I do, really, for their intended purpose. So do keep that in mind for the points that I want to touch. And the points I want to touch, the topics I want to cover, are basically just optics, then comfort, maneuverability, then protective value, and the last point will be durability, because some things came up in that regard. And then I hope to be able to kind of wrap it up. I'll try not to take too long doing so. So, optics. First thing I immediately noticed when taking them out of their packaging is that the colored bits here, the accents basically, they come in white, yellow and red. And the club colors for my club are more blue and black. I really would have wished they would just do black gloves, just normal HEMA black, but I think they said it's for branding purposes. Okay, so I thought I'd be smart about it and just, paint it blue then. I've done that with other pieces of gear and it worked out fine. Thing is, these white accented parts here are not the same kind of like smooth leather than other parts of the glove. It's more like a rougher type of leather, more like a suede kind of leather really, and well, that is really good at picking up grime, I have to say. So, I mean, in a way that fixes my problem. I don't think I have to worry about it being white for too long. But yeah, that was kind of like a first surprise. I don't know, I probably could have caught it on pictures, but I really thought it would just be, like normal smooth leather that they would use for that. And then, another thing, somehow I had it in my head, I don't quite know where I got that from, but I had it in my head somewhere, that the Thokks would have a smaller footprint than other comparably heavy gloves. But, taking them out of their packaging, comparing them to my Infinities, I don't really think you can say they are, right? I don't quite remember where I had that idea from, but I was a bit surprised really how big they actually are, right? Those are not small gloves here. And then thirdly, another thing I noticed is because I got the full package, which is the Thokk Weaponmaster Pro Blade Proof, I think is the full name, so the 800 Newton version. And I also got the longsword badass add-on, as they call it. And one thing that I noticed is that it doesn't really look quite as fitting the glove as it does in their adverts. Now, they do say in the adverts that you can bend them to shape, to fit the glove, to fit your hand shape, your glove shape better, but more on that later. Okay, so that basically covers the optics. Then comfort, maneuverability. Generally speaking, if you look at the video we did on us using them for longsword, fencing with them was really quite fun. I liked their maneuverability, I liked moving in about them. Some things, though, is, for one, the general concept of these gloves is that you basically have two gloves. You have an inner glove and an outer glove. And as far as protection goes, they kind of add on. I'll go into more details later. But that means that, at least for my size, this is L, and it fits as far as the thumb goes. In the fingers, I probably could have had a bit more room. I think it is kind of like the very low end of size that I could have gotten. Then again, the next one up would have probably been too much. That's not on the glove, that's on me. My hands are weird like that. But the gloves inside each other can be a bit of a tight fit. To a degree that in the beginning, because they were still stiff, it's gotten better already, but in the beginning my pinky could have sometimes, it sometimes locked up basically, and then I kind of had to manually bend it. As soon as you have your hand around the grip, you're fine with that, of course, but it is a bit of a tight fit at times, really. Another thing regarding the comfort is just, you know, when you put them on, two gloves inside each other, and the inner glove is made of a very smooth, flexible material. I think it might be the same as they've used here for the tip of the thumb or the insides of the fingers. And because it is so stretchy and so smooth, when you move your hand inside, you kind of have to do a bit of a little dance where you go like a centimeter in and then you have to pull out again a bit, and until it all smoothens out. Once you have them on, that's not a problem, but kind of a hassle, especially when you have just put in the inside gloves. And now the thing is, of course, the idea is that you take the inside out and put it back in when it suits you. Frankly, I, for my part, will probably just leave them. And if I want to do some lighter kind of fencing, then I'll just use my motorcycle type-ish gloves, which cost like 50 euros for a pair or something. But it is something to keep in mind, really. Again, once you have it all figured out, then you're good. Another thing regarding maneuverability is the wrist. Now, with wrists, of course, you always have kind of a problem. Like, you want to make it maneuverable, you want to make it flexible, but you also want to have it protected, because you don't want to get a cut on an unprotected wrist. But that means that quite often the wrist is stiffer than I would personally like for what I do for one-handed fencing, because I can't really compensate lacking wrist maneuverability with a second hand, right? I have to do it all with that one. And with the Thokks, because of the cuff construction, moving to the inside is fine, even with padding. When I have my jacket on, that's okay. But moving to the outside is a bit more of a challenge. It will probably break in better over time as well, but it is something where I just noticed I really have to fight the glove a bit. That's not unusual, that's not a particular Thokk problem, that's just, yeah, it happens quite often. It got better with the Infinity gloves over time, so it will probably be here as well, but you know, just if you are very heavy on wrist maneuverability, that just is something that, a problem that these gloves have as well. They need to break in, and just by construction, you will not be able to bend your wrist as far as you would with a more flexible glove. Just comparing them to my well-broken Infinity gloves, right? It's kind of the same in that regard. So far, so much for maneuverability and comfort, and moving on to protective value. Again, two gloves inside each other, adding on to one another. With the outer glove, you have like hard protection over the fingers here, basically these two caps. You have some light padding on the outside, no padding on the inside of the fingers, really. Then you have hard shells here on the side of the thumb. You have some thicker padding here, and again some hard materials here on the side, and of course thick plate on the back of the hand over the knuckles. The inside gloves have more foam padding on the back of the fingers, and they have the finger caps, and then some added padding on the side and back of the hand, really. And because it is, as I said, kind of like a thick glove at times, it does need to break in. The finger cap actually feels kind of nice, and it goes down to the side. It kind of like covers the last joint of the finger. And generally speaking, as far as protection goes, now we were still in the figuring out phase, so we haven't like really gone at it. But the cuts that I caught felt fine. Like I didn't notice too much of them, with one exception, and that is the side of the outer two fingers. Thing is, you have the padding here for the outer glove. You do not really have anything from the inner glove on the side of the fingers, which means that any protection you have really is this padding material here. And to be honest, it is not really, it's not particularly thick. The only protection you really have at the side is at the fingertips, where you have the caps that kind of protect your fingers. And QED, first time fencing Messer with them, I got a thrust right here below the joint, basically here. And as I said, we were not really fencing hard. We were still in the figuring out phase of the whole testing. And well, I still felt that thrust for several days. I had a welt here, and it luckily didn't go on the joint. It could have though, because over the joint here there isn't really anything, which I found a bit perplexing in a way. I really would have thought that they would put more, because I mean, I don't know about you, but for me it is not too uncommon to grip the cross a bit too tightly and then make a mistake and get a cut over the cross, or get a cut from below, particularly in saber fencing. That's just can happen, avoidable if you do everything right, but you know what are gloves for if not to protect you from your own mistakes. Like that. And you know, particularly when I think about something like side sword, where you have a ring that you go through and then getting a cut from above, I'm not quite too sure what I think about that, to be honest. Generally everything else speaking is fine, but that one, And thing is, I thought then, look, maybe that is what these longsword badass add-ons are for as well, but they add more protection for the first joint behind the knuckles, really, and more protection here to the side where there's already a hard plate. They also like close this gap that you have here, depending on how far you pull it down, really. So on the top, basically, you close the gap to the finger caps, but not to the side. That is still open, basically. Pardon. Now, as I said, generally speaking, when using them, that was fine, but that just leaves me a bit with a tilted head and a bit of a question mark. Moving on then to general durability things that I noticed. For one thing that had me wondering was the material I mentioned of the tip or of the thumb that is also used for the insides. And that is just the way it feels and the way it looks. It really felt like a material that would have its strings pulled easily. Just, you know, something about it. And since then, that actually happened to Ulrich. Now, granted, it wasn't filmed when it happened. I wasn't there. So we don't really know what happened. But thing is that somehow he got, well, a cut into that fabric that is now compromised for him. What we think has happened, what is most likely, I would say, is that he got that during mesa fencing, during a grappling action, when getting in contact with his partner's blade. Now, of course, you should always deburr and file down your swords, but during sparring, that can just happen, which makes this material, for me personally, this very flexible, light, stringy material, a bit of an odd choice again. Not sure about that really. Another thing is that I mentioned the longsword badass add-ons aren't really quite as ergonomic, form-fitting as they are in their adverts. And again, the advert says that you can kind of bend it to shape. And I tried that, and I really tried to be a bit careful about it and not use too much force, but it didn't really have too much of an effect, I think. And well, the other one immediately snapped. Granted, I contacted Thokk and they will send a replacement. It might just be a batch issue because Ulrich has gotten his a bit earlier and he didn't even get them on really, because on one of those the loop that goes to the inside of your hand immediately tore off. So maybe it's just a bad batch of those, but it is again something that has me raising my head a bit, my eyebrow rather, when I'm just like not entirely sure, you know. The thing is, just for other gloves that would cost less, that would probably, you know, concern me a bit less, but these are not cheap gloves here, right? I mean, they are less expensive than the Pro Gauntlet, but the Pro Gauntlet also are a much more complex product, at least as far as obvious mechanics go. And the Pro Gauntlet does have a fully encased finger, right? That is fully protected there. They are definitely more expensive than the Infinity gloves, and I mean, your fingers are more flexible, you could argue, but they're not really smaller. And again, the Infinity gloves do have fully encased fingers. And yeah, as I said, they didn't really have a chance to prove themselves to me yet, so do keep that in mind. But the thing is, again, not exactly cheap gloves. I got the full package, which means that, you know, 800 Newton version, not the 350 one. I got the Longsword Badass add-ons, and with PayPal fees, which are on me, I just wanted to get the payment out of the way as fast as possible. Could have paid another way that didn't incur fees. But with shipping, with PayPal fees, with taking the 800 Newton one and the optional add-ons, that was close to 400 euros that I paid. And yeah. So, you know, they don't feel bad. I'm looking forward to using them more. I really want to give them a chance to prove that they are good gloves for what I do. Fencing with the longsword was really fun, but you know, the thrust on the side of the finger, the material of the thumb that is just, I think, really prone to getting torn. we'll see how that goes. We will do a proper long-form review once I've actually had a chance to use them when I'm fully recovered. So I'm looking forward to just using them more and seeing what happens. Might be that my opinion gets more of a positive twist once they had a chance to prove themselves. We'll see. So check back when we have the full review out. Looking forward to seeing you there again. Cheers. Was nicht geschützt ist.